What's the next one? That we got?
King Philip says, I know I unsubbed because I got tired of hearing his Chris Brown rant.
I highlight this comment for a reason. And here's your segment right now for this topic. I almost unsubscribed to John Campea for this situation right here. The thing that was going to be my test of whether or not I was about to unsubscribe to John Campea last couple of weeks ago or last month was Jonathan Majors. There's one example. Prejudice media coverage is a big issue with me. One example that I bring up all the time, whether Tab likes it, I think I brought it up. Tab like, oh my God, I bring this same topic up a lot because it's relevant. Hurricane Katrina. When the waters came in and people were flooded out of their homes, they needed food, they needed fresh water, they needed supplies. There was a convenience store that was abandoned because of the flood, and people went in there and they got food and whatever the supplies they could find out of it because they were flooded out of their homes and they needed to survive. But there was a newspaper, a local newspaper, when a white family broke into that abandoned convenience store and took food out of there so they could feed themselves and survive from the flood. The newspaper said, family seen here finding supplies after the flood. Black family at the exact same store and covered by the exact same newspaper did the exact same thing. What do you think the headline was? Family seen here stealing supplies. So why is it that the white family was finding food, black family stealing food? That is a history. That is something that's gone on in this country since the beginning of this country. In this hypocritical way, paint the black people doing a certain thing in a more negative light than you would paint white people doing it. That is it's just a fact. It's been done. It's over and over again. Let's just not pretend like that's not happening in this country. So ever since Chris Brown did what he did when he hit Rihanna and whatnot, John Campea, for months to years, he got for about a good year, would bring it up over and over again. Sometimes he would bring it would be anytime there was any kind of domestic thing with an actor, he would always come back to Chris Brown all the time. And this, even in the middle of the Johnny Depp thing, what started to piss me off was, and a lot of you guys might remember this, what started to piss me off was when Ezra Miller was in the news. And when that was hot and everybody was talking about it, I made sure to pay real close attention to John Campea. I'm a big fan of John Campea. Everybody knows I love John Campea, but this is something that I have never been shy on criticizing him about. Because as much as I love his outlet and how he does his thing, I am not going to pretend like this not piss me off. Because every time a violent situation with an actor would come up, he would always bring up Chris Brown. He would say, I might be a chauvinist, but I have sisters, and many men who would hit a woman is not a man. And I agree. I'm not a Chris Brown fan. I don't give a fuck about Chris Brown. What he did to Rihanna was bad, was so bad. But that would always be his go-to punching bag for it. Chris Brown went to trial and for what he did. And whether he was acquitted or not, whether you like the end results of it or not, he went to trial for it. Fast forward to, and then every 5 minutes, it seemed like John Campea would just bring it up over and over and over again. Then when we got into the Ezra Miller phase of it, after Johnny Depp, and then went up to Ezra Miller, Rob, Chris Carr, they would all have the same kind of thing. Chris Carr was more. I like what Chris was saying more about it than everybody else. But what did John say? Ezra Miller, if he's guilty of what he did, if they are guilty of what they did, then F them. You don't hit people like that. You don't all that. He would always end the sentence the same way. But I hope they get help. He never said that about Chris Brown. But what did Ezra Miller do? Let's go to the timeline. Choked a woman in a bar. Threw a chair at another woman. Friends of his, people that he knew, threatened to burn or kill some dude's wife who they helped bail him out of jail. These are 3 different situations, and this spread it on for years. What was the same result? What was the same thing that John would say on his show? I hope they get help. Not F that guy and you should never hit. Like, no, he to be fair, he said that too. But he always would end it with, I hope they get help. And that's what, I know this word, we don't like this word, but
For me,
what triggered me was the difference between finding supplies and stealing supplies. When it was Chris Brown, it was you're a scum of the earth, you're an asshole, you're this and you're that. But when it was Ezra Miller, it was you're a dirtbag for what you did and all that. But I hope you get help. He never said that about Chris Brown. For whatever reason, John, as much as I like your show, for whatever reason, there was something inside of you that only would give certain people. You never talked like that about Johnny Depp or Amber Heard. You said these two people just were toxic. They need to stay away from each other. You never was as that was, and you never was as sharp as how you would end it for Chris. So I would always ask myself, was it because we saw those pictures of Rihanna all busted up? Is it because Rihanna is such a queen and a goddess and up there like Taylor Swift and Beyonce and whatnot? And whatnot. So what does that mean? That Ezra Miller's victims were like, oh, because they're not on Rihanna's level, we don't give Ezra Miller as much shit as we gave Chris Brown? It never made sense to me. So what are you trying to say about those victims? And wasn't one of Ezra Miller's victims a child that he was allegedly grooming? Here's the thing, because I don't disagree with his stance on Chris Brown, but I will tell him to his face, I just don't think it was fair how you covered Chris Brown versus how you covered Ezra Miller, because I think Ezra Miller did worse. Not saying that Ezra Miller did worse to one individual person, as Chris Brown did to Rihanna, but he did worse to multiple people and then he laughed at the cops as he was evading arrest and stuff. And then the grooming thing, that was enough to stop saying, I hope they get help. No, Ezra should have gotten the same F that guy, throw him under the prison treatment as Chris Brown got. It never made sense to me why Ezra kept getting the I hope they get help line at the end of every rant. It always bothered me. So if anybody thinks that I'm a John Campea apologist and stuff like that, I like John's show. I watch it every day. But if you ask, do I have a criticism of it? That was it. That's the one. The different coverage for certain types of actors and whatnot and rants. There it is. What's my one beef? What's my beef with? There's a bunch of things I can criticize the show about, but that's my biggest one. So yeah. So I'll go and I'll probably go back to that video, and maybe I'll do a longer "We Got Your Mail" for every comment, because I want to give everybody a chance to get their voice out there, because all the comments that came, I want to show you guys exactly what people were saying on that video, and what you probably might say when I segmentize this. He says, "Cool, who won?" Okay, yeah. I think his name was Jesus Gonzalez. That's who won the John Wick pop. Next one, Kevin Meyer says, great point with the Chris Brown story. It needs consistency. He did not have consistency. That's what it pissed me off. And when the whole thing with Jonathan Majors happened, and when he was going to talk about it, I watched that. I played that video, and I told myself, if he does the Chris Brown thing again on Jonathan Majors before we even figure out what's going on, whether he's guilty, because Jonathan Majors could be 100% guilty. And if he is, like I say, F that guy too. If I felt like Johnny Depp was 100% guilty, F that guy, and that would be the end of the sentence. What I said about Johnny Depp was both of those people are guilty, and they both just need to stay the hell away from each other. She won her case in England. He won the one in America. That's 1-1. Y'all stay the fuck away from each other and go y'all separate ways, and y'all better not do it again. The first person that does it again, y'all be stupid.
It's like a real life case of beef. People just are trying to.
It's a real life case of beef.
Effing with each other to see
where's the beef?
How much more petty and angry we can get with each other.
Yeah, it's one perfect analogy. Perfect. That was the Johnny Depp thing was a real life case of beef. But when the Jonathan Majors thing is unfolded, because he's going to court again in May. If John, to this day, I swear, if John Campea's outcome is the way he acted with Chris Brown, and I'm not defending Chris Brown, fuck Chris Brown, I don't give a fuck about Chris Brown. But if the consistency isn't there, the way he does with "I hope they get help" kind of a thing, like he gave to Ezra and to everybody else, then no, then I'm gonna be okay. That's a pattern. Then I'm like, all right, then I'm gonna say screw it. But he hasn't, so I mean, I don't know. Maybe he just really hates Chris Brown. Maybe for all I know, he just really hates his music. That could be it. If John goes, dude, I can't stand that dude's music. I'm like, all right, okay, now I get it. Like how people feel about, like, you know, they're an artist that they hate. Maybe it was just the music, because that's the only outlier. He's a musician first and a movie guy later. But how do I know that's just not an excuse? I can give myself conspiracy theories all day long. That's just the excuse you made up. That's why I wanted to let the Jonathan Majors one be the outlier, because I'm watching. Because if he does it again, I'm gonna be like, all right, then I'm probably gonna stop watching the show. I don't want John Campea to become my Brie Larson, but he might.